Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership, Season 14. I'm Phil Dark, your host, and with me is my brother, my co-host, Paul Jobson. We're back, man. We're ready to kick off this other season after a short break with some amazing recasts. So what's going on, man?
And just no, it's good to be back on the pod with you. And yeah, I'm excited about this next season, the things that we're doing here. And it's always fun to go back and re-listen to some of those I think what I consider some of the top pods we've done, some fun stuff. So if our folks haven't heard those, go back and listen. It's awesome. But yeah, things are good, man. Just going through the seasons, in seasons, out of seasons. But ready to jump into this season, season 14 with you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I will say I'm not gonna go into all of them, but I did happen to recast the Corey Close interview right before they won the national championship. So that was
It's
pretty
great
cool.
timing.
It
Great
was
timing.
great timing. I had a feeling I actually released it in the quarterfinals. And I was like, you know what? I think they're gonna do it. And they did it, and it was pretty awesome. So that was a lot of fun. And then as we're kicking off the World Cup, we had Paul Caligiuri back on, with the recast there. So that was cool. But as we're kicking off season 14, we're going to do a little something a little different this season. We're going to do these 10 to 15-minute episodes with some leadership nuggets that are all surrounding this theme of the people advantage. And the idea being that the teams that perform better and win more are typically teams that understand each other better and are studying each other. And the coaches are studying the players, and the players are studying each other and understanding each other on and off the field. The more you understand someone off the field, the more you're going to click on the field. And that's just the reality that you've seen if you've played this game long enough. It's part of the equation, and it's an important part of the equation. Obviously, talent's a huge part of the equation. But most of the issues in teams typically aren't talent or skill problems. They're people problems, and the toxicity in teams typically does not come because someone's too good of a player or someone's not a good enough player. Well, and if they're not a good enough player, they're probably not going to be playing. But if they're too good of a player, that's usually not a problem. But they could be really good player who's just not a good person, and that can often cause problems in teams. Or they're just a misunderstood person. So that's really what we're going to be talking about this season and this episode specifically. We wanted to kick off that idea. We wanted to be able to talk about this just generally. This idea of most issues, most problems in teams aren't skill problems; they're people problems, and why teams lose games that they shouldn't, and why they don't perform at their highest level when these issues arise. So what do you think about that? What do you think about just the season? What do you think about the idea? Let's talk.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about it because I think that it's an overlooked piece of teams and team success. Team, you can call it team chemistry, you can call it team culture. You can label it how you want, but I think it's the things we're going to talk about this season that are really much off the field that really affect what's going on the field. And kind of, as you mentioned, getting to know each other better. What does that look like? Why is it important? What are the different roles of the different people and how that can affect the overall team? If you've got a singular coach or you've got a staff of coaches, that team within the team. I think all of this is going to go really well together this season. We talk a lot about the X's and the O's as a soccer culture. I think one thing that you and I try to do is we really do try to take these outside off the field pieces that really do affect on the field and dive into it. Because you and I think both are aligned in how important those things really are in how you build that team culture, team chemistry, and the different responsibilities of everybody within that organization to lead to success. And in soccer, success is usually measured by wins, wins, wins and losses. And I think as a coach, you want to find what are the different factors that I can bring into my team to help us win as much as possible. And I think these are some really overlooked things by a lot of coaches because we get into, how do we get better on the field? Better touches. What's our what's our formation, what, how do these, but we're missing out on the off the field stuff. So I'm looking forward to season 14 and maybe be able to provide some resources and some ideas and thoughts for our listeners to really dive into.
Yeah, so I love all that. And, and what do you think about just the general idea? I mean, you've coached a lot, you've coached at different levels. You're now the director of a club. And what do you feel about that as far as that idea of most of the problems in the teams that arise aren't surrounding ability or skill or talent, but they're typically, players, coaches, misunderstanding players, and let's throw in parents there too, especially what you're doing now, misunderstanding each other, and not communicating well. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of problems, go back to communication or lack of communication for sure. And we can say that parents are the problem, the big problem in club soccer right now. But I don't disagree with that necessarily. But I do think one way that we can help eliminate that or reduce that being a problem is through communication, and that's either coming from club directors, or specifically, it has to come from coaches for sure. I think club directors can help in that as well. But I do think the communication goes a long way. Getting ahead of problems before they come about. And if you want to talk about skill and talent and all of those things, I think coaches need to be aware of how to communicate expectations to players and parents of what they think is going on with each kid, and that can help eliminate some problems when you're looking at A teams and B teams playing time or things like that. There's a lot of communication that goes along with that, but the communication piece definitely can help eliminate some problems before they get to. I equate it to how I talk to goalkeepers. Say, hey, you have an advantage. You can see the entire field, and you're a goalkeeper, Phil. I'm not, but I see it as, hey, you can see the entire field. If I'm a goalkeeper, the last thing I want to do is take a shot. So how do you
Hmm.
eliminate problems ahead of you before they get to you, before someone takes a shot? You've got to organize everybody in front of you, which means you've got to communicate, step hard, step to the tackle, get stuck in, move up, whatever your communication is, eliminate the problem before it gets to you. Because we all know as a goalkeeper, when the ball goes in the back of the net, the person they looked at is the goalkeeper. But it's gone through
Yep.
10 other
Yep.
players before that
That's
problem
right.
actually happened. So I see that as, how do we, as coaches, as leaders, how do we communicate ahead of us, eliminate problems before they get to us? So I think the goalkeeper, in my mind, is the best way to kind of look at that is, hey, eliminate problems before they get to you, knowing that you're still going to have to handle some problems, but there'll be fewer, and you then go back and communicate, hey, here's where the breakdown was, that sort of thing. So that's how I kind of view that. What are your thoughts on that, Phil?
I love that, especially the goalkeeper analogy. I love that analogy, not just because I was a goalkeeper, not just I'm a 5'8" goalkeeper, that the only reason I got recruited to play in college was because of exactly what you're just saying, where I was able to lead my defense. I still hold the school record for my high school for shutouts, not because I was an incredible, like agile 5'8" keeper who could save diving saves in the upper corners, because I organized my team, because I was able to lead them. And I had players say, you're like an extension of my brain on the field. When you're not in there for whatever reason, I'm like kind of not knowing what to do, because it's exactly what you're saying. I was constantly talking. But it wasn't just gibberish. It was directing. It was being that conductor of the field. And the reality is, coaches should be a conductor. Coaches should not be someone who's not playing the instruments. You'll never play the instruments. But I often go, what does a conductor do? Like, honestly, we watch them. They're waving the little wand or whatever, it's baton or whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called, but they're doing stuff, obviously, and it's really important, obviously, but you don't see most of it. And that's where, I think coaches have a similar role, right? But it's not just, when you're talking about major clubs and organizations, you have a board, you have a management, you have, you're even seeing at Manchester United right now, like, does Carrick stay? Does Carrick go? And so they have the back room that's going to make a huge impact on that team based on what they're doing. So how is everyone in this, moving together, and what does that look like, and who are those people? So I do believe that the coach really is the connector of all of that, but each person has their individual role as well, right? Because if a trumpet just starts going off on something, it's not going to work, right? So you can't. So the teams have to understand each other. They have to know each other, and they have to be able to communicate with the conductor. The conductor has to be able to communicate with them, and to be able to do it all at once. And I love that with the goalkeeper. And I think that that's absolutely right. And so, but if the goalkeeper's back there and doesn't understand his players and is ripping into players that, in a way that is not encouraging and is not motivating, but is actually, like a demotivation for these people, that's like worse, and I'm coaching keepers. When I coach keepers, I want them to be talking, but I'm like really important. I'm like, you got to realize you got to know what you're talking about back here, or it'll actually be way worse if you're just talking the whole time and that'd be a distraction, not an actual help, right? So that's where knowing how to communicate, knowing what to say, knowing how to say it, knowing when to say it, knowing in what tone to say it in, right? All those things are critical. And that's, again, what we're going to be getting into over the course of the season. But I think it's something that is absolutely important. So
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to this because even like you just said, that all the things you just listed there, that that your goalkeeper or your conductor, or your coach, and then understanding that each individual person that you're communicating with might have to be a little bit different, and that's what we're
yeah.
going to get into, I think, through this season is how do you know that, and how do you learn that, and so I'm really excited about kind of opening that box a little bit for everybody.
Yep. So with that, we are going to wrap up this first episode. Just a teaser. It's just a teaser, and each episode is going to be like this. It's going to be chock full of solid nuggets of leadership, and we always love the nuggets. We always love the nuggets. So
Love the nuggets.
um, and that's what we're going to be doing. Bite-sized chunks that we can hopefully use, not just in our own learning, but for the teams that we're a part of. These are things that we can easily use for individual sessions. So with that, we hope that this is something you're excited about. And if there are other things you want us to do, if you really like this and say, hey, you know what, we'd love you to do another season. Here's some things that we want you to talk about. Please send those in. But without more from us, you can check out the show notes for everything about Warrior Way, about learning more about DISC and stuff that we're going to be talking about throughout this season. I'll have my email address. I'm actually launching, in the process of launching a new business, Dark Leadership Group, to do a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about this season. So if that's something that interests you, check out the show notes. With all this, we always hope that you're learning what you're learning from this show, and you're using it to be a better coach, to be a better parent, better spouse, better player, better leader, better at everything that you do. And you continually remind yourself, soccer does explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great couple weeks.